And then into the afternoon across Northern Ireland, western parts of Wales, southwest England, a band of rain, which could be heavy at times, will move in here. And turning fresher as a result, 20 or 21 Celsius. In the east, holding on to the heat and humidity, highs of 25 or 26. Through the evening, thunderstorms move away. Then this band of rain pushes north and east across the UK. Behind it, fresher conditions following, mixture of clear skies and scattered showers. So a much more comfortable night for sleeping Friday night into Saturday morning. Towns and cities holding up in double figures, but slipping into single figures in the countryside. So a bright start to Saturday morning, but there will be a mixture of showers, some of these heavy. Showers most frequent across western areas through the day. The east holding on to the driest and brightest weather, but there will be some showers here too. Perhaps some longer spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland later on in the day. And also with this low pressure nearby, we will see increasing winds, particularly through the Irish Sea, some gales developing towards Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And a fresher feeling day for all. Temperatures high teens to low 20s, perhaps 23 to 25 across southeast England. And that remains so for the weekend. We're looking at a mixture of sunny spells and showers, some of these heavy at times, and temperatures overall around average for the time of year, reaching the low 20s.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A very good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christys, on your TV, radio, and of course online as well. I'm with you all the way through until midday with a show jam-packed with all of today's biggest stories. And let's be honest, there's a lot to get stuck into today, isn't there? Lots of discussion, expert guests, my opinions as well as yours. Make sure that you get in touch with your views as well. As usual, gbviews@gbnews.uk. I'll get stuck right into those throughout the show. But first, it's time for your latest headlines.
Good morning, it's 1 minute past 10. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom, and I understand Boris Johnson is talking live from Kigali in Rwanda. Let's cross live to him now.
Everything we stand for is Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Putin's blockade of the ports that would otherwise be shipping food to the world's poorest people. At this moment, nearly 25 million tons of corn and wheat is piled up in silos across Ukraine, held hostage by Russia. Britain supports the United Nations plan to get that food out, and we will invest over £370 million in global food security this year, including £130 million for the World Food Programme. We want to work alongside our Commonwealth friends to understand your needs, your priorities, and to deliver joint solutions to a crisis that Putin has deliberately engineered. For now, it only remains for me to thank every Commonwealth member for having given the United Kingdom the chance to serve as chair in office. And as I pass on this responsibility to President Kagame, a close friend and a partner, I know that he shares my boundless optimism about the future of the Commonwealth at the forefront of the international agenda and benefiting all our peoples. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your remarks, Mr. Prime Minister. It is now my great privilege.
Boris Johnson, they're reacting, well, in a way, obviously, to the Rwanda stuff, but also talking, of course, about those by-election defeats. How do you feel about this, though, ladies and gentlemen at home? I want to hear from you. This is all about you. We are the People's Channel, of course. And do you want to know whether or not you think this is it for Boris? I suspect not. But GBViews at gbnews.uk. Boris Johnson obviously says he will keep going despite everything that's gone on in those two by-election defeats. But this morning, more drama for the Conservative Party. They are down those two seats, haven't they? They've lost their party chairman as well, but Boris Johnson says he's staying put. He's not moving. That lady is not returning, right? The party lost the so-called Red Wall seat in the Wakefield by-election, of course, as well as losing Tiverton and Devon, a Tory heartland seat. And as you've just been hearing, of course, the Conservative Party chairman as well, Oliver Dowden, decided the by-election losses, well, it was the straw that broke the camel's back for him, wasn't it? They were enough. That was enough. And he handed in his resignation. But I believe that Prince Charles is now currently talking, and we're going to go to that now.
And can only applaud Rwanda's determination and patience in ensuring our gathering is successful. Throughout her reign, the Queen has placed and continues to place the greatest importance on the common friendship, humanity, and values that all of us share in this room, not despite, but because of the diversity the Commonwealth represents. And I know how grateful she is that, in recognition of Her Majesty's unstinting service to our Commonwealth family, all Commonwealth member states have announced that they have now committed themselves to the Queen's Commonwealth canopy. I treasure the friendships we have built over these past 70 years and look forward to their deepening in the years ahead. As we build back from the pandemic that has devastated so many lives, as we respond to climate change and biodiversity loss that threatens our very existence, and as we see lives destroyed by the unattenuated aggression of violent forces, such friendships are more important than ever. I take heart from the fact that working together and with urgent intent, there is a path to build a future for humanity that is sustainable, prosperous, and just. Our Commonwealth family is, and will always remain, a free association of independent, self-governing nations. We meet and talk as equals, sharing our knowledge and experience for the betterment of all citizens of the Commonwealth, and indeed the wider world. The Commonwealth contains within it countries that have had constitutional relationships with my family, some that continue to do so, and increasingly those that have had none. I want to say clearly, as I have said before, that each member's constitutional arrangement, as republic or monarchy, is purely a matter for each member country to decide. The benefit of long life brings me the experience that arrangements such as these can change calmly and without rancour. But as I said in Barbados last November, we should never forget the things which do not change. The close and trusted partnership between Commonwealth members, our common values and shared goals, and perhaps most importantly, the strong and enduring connections between the peoples of the Commonwealth which strengthen us all. These shared values, goals and friendships transcend the ties of shared history, as we saw in welcoming Mozambique and Rwanda to this great family of nations. And now, coming to Rwanda for the first time, visiting the Genocide Memorial and speaking to survivors, I have been overwhelmed by the resilience, grace, and determination of the Rwandan people. Today, Rwanda upholds so much that is extraordinary. As a centre for innovation, a world leader in women's empowerment, a growing hub for the green economy, and a commitment to a united future. As leaders, you consider how to define and strengthen our own commitment to common purpose, and I would only offer you the view that our Commonwealth family of some of the world's most vulnerable and some of the world's wealthiest nations has the ability, indeed the obligation, to be a force for global public good. Why else, ladies and gentlemen, would an increasing number of countries want to join this association? In the diversity of the 2.6 billion people on whose behalf you speak comes great strength, which you can use, for instance, to speak up for the values which bind us, to invest in a rapid transition to a sustainable future, and to create opportunities for our young people. I believe that the Commonwealth is uniquely positioned to achieve such positive change in our world. And in speaking to you over the years, I know you agree. Indeed, I can only applaud the focus you are bringing to supporting youth, business and civil society, not least through the Commonwealth professional associations of judges, teachers and midwives, to name but three. I know the importance you attach to ensuring that support reaches the developing world, and how important is the work you are undertaking to develop new approaches which take account of climate vulnerability, to enable the better channeling of development assistance. I was also greatly heartened at yesterday's business forum to see Commonwealth leaders and global CEOs, including from my Sustainable Markets Initiative, identifying practical solutions to these vital challenges. To achieve this potential good, however, and to unlock the power of our common future, we must also acknowledge the wrongs which have shaped our past. Many of those wrongs belong to an earlier age with different and, in some ways, lesser values. By working together, we are building a new and enduring friendship. In Canada recently, my wife and I were deeply touched to meet many of those engaged in the ongoing process of reconciliation. Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples reflecting honestly and openly on one of the darkest aspects of history. As challenging as that conversation can be, people across Canada are approaching it with courage and unwavering commitment, determined to lay a foundation of respect and understanding upon which a better future can be built. It seems to me that there are lessons in this for our Commonwealth family. For while we strive together for peace, prosperity and democracy, I want to acknowledge that the roots of our contemporary association run deep into the most painful period of our history. I cannot describe the depths of my personal sorrow at the suffering of so many, as I continue to deepen my own understanding of slavery's enduring impact. If we are to forge a common future that benefits all our citizens, we too must find ways, new ways, to acknowledge our past. Quite simply, this is a conversation whose time has come. Your Excellencies, conversations start with listening, and as the Queen said at our last meeting, the Commonwealth has always been and remains a global association which believes in the tangible benefits that flow from exchanging ideas and experiences and respecting each other's point of view. Our ingenuity, knowledge and ideas, our courage and determination are truly our common wealth. By unlocking our potential, we can build a future in which all our people have a stake, ensuring that our Commonwealth Charter represents not just words on a page, but the lived experience of all. And in so doing, we will equip our children and grandchildren to be agents of a better future. Your Excellencies, if we are to leave the world better than we found it, and that is our duty and our privilege, we must be bold with our ambition, decisive with our actions, and united in our effort. In this mission, I know Her Majesty the Queen stands with us all.
Yes, OK, everybody. Right, Patrick Christie's here live on GB News, of course. That was Prince Charles talking there at this Commonwealth Summit. And Cameron Walker joins me right now. Who better, of course. Cameron, thank you. Just pick through the bones of that, please.
Well, I think it was effectively acknowledging that Prince Charles was acknowledging that forces are already in place for a number of Caribbean nations to effectively get rid of the British monarchy, ties they've had for hundreds of years, in favour of their own elected head of state. There were rumours yesterday and this morning that perhaps he would very much acknowledge that that is happening. He talked about slavery and the need to address the horrors of the past.
He did. He said, didn't he? Personally, he says he struggles with what went on there. Basically, doesn't he, with slavery? He kind of said it's a personal cross that he's bearing, really, even though it's not obviously directly his fault. But currently,
yeah, he did indeed, and he said that constitutional decisions are a matter for each nation, i.e., we do not own you anymore. Kind of aloof, and kind of nodding to our kind of colonial past, and I think it's a good timing in the sense that when the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge went on their recent Caribbean tour, they were, like it or not, kind of heavily criticised for the way they went about it and the images that were kind of portrayed. We saw them on an open-top Land Rover, as Her Majesty the Queen did kind of 70 years before even, which kind of shows that they were almost above the people of the Caribbean, which just didn't really sit well. Look, the monarchy needs to modernise in order to survive, especially in these nations, and I think, you know, that Prince Charles is the future king, and he is going to be the future head of the Commonwealth.
And he's going to try some. And also, by the way, you know, look, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you thought about that, because I think it won't necessarily sit that well with everybody what Prince Charles has just said, but it's not that uncommon. Prince Philip had a massive hand in kind of not getting rid of the empire, of course, but you know, modernising it. So Prince Philip was a big royal moderniser, and maybe Prince Charles is trying to do that. Maybe this is an element that he sees it as, OK, we know he's big on the green stuff, allegedly. We know he's big on this kind of thing, so maybe that's what he's trying to do now, do you think, to freshen it up?
Yeah, and I think necessarily not getting rid of the monarchy doesn't necessarily mean you're ending a friendship with the monarchy. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the Commonwealth in the first place. It's a number of nations with shared values, shared interests, with the monarchy at the centre in terms of kind of this big umbrella organisation. So I think it's not necessarily going to cause any bitterness between relationships between Britain and the rest of the kind of former colonial realms, as it were.
No, absolutely. And obviously it was important there. The Commonwealth Summit is in Kigali, wasn't it, of course, which is very relevant considering what we're trying to do in terms of our Rwanda plan. As yet, obviously, nobody has actually been sent to Rwanda, apart from Prince Charles and Boris Johnson.
Well, exactly. And they are actually expected to meet a little bit later on this afternoon over a very awkward cup of tea. There were rumours, I believe Boris Johnson said that he would happily kind of tell to Prince Charles' face if Prince Charles kind of brought it up, his kind of comments, which are reported in the Times, where he reportedly said that particular policy is appalling. But Number 10 have backtracked on that and says that it's going to be very much a private conversation. So we'll see if any rumours slip out of there.
Well, that's it, exactly, isn't it? And you're absolutely spot on, as always, which is that's going to be... I would imagine, like you said there, an awkward cup of tea, I think. But so obviously, Cameron, look, thank you so much. Great stuff, as always. Cheers for reacting to that. Cameron Walker there, of course. Our royal reporter just reacting to what you've seen earlier. If you're just joining us, so basically Prince Charles and indeed Boris Johnson are in Kigali. They're in Rwanda at the minute. It's the Commonwealth Summit, but they were talking, well, about a lot of stuff, actually. I mean, first and foremost, obviously, they're going to have a private chat about what's going to go on in terms of the Rwanda deal. You can understand that. But also, Prince Charles, they're making several comments. Talking really, I think, about, well, he basically apologised for the past. He apologised for things like slavery, he apologised for various historic wrongs. How do you feel about that? Should he be doing that? Do you think? GBViews at gbnews.uk. But, of course, Boris Johnson is now in Rwanda, which takes his mind off, potentially, what happened, because the Conservative Party, as of this morning, are down 2 seats. They lost their party chairman as well. Boris Johnson says that he's staying put. He's not going anywhere. The party lost the so-called Red Wall seat in Wakefield. That was in the by-election over there as well as losing the Tiverton and Devon seat as well, which was a Tory heartland. But some people would say it's natural at this point in time, at this particular point, this juncture in a government's history, that you get a bit of a kicking at the by-election. So we'll have to wait and see how much exactly that matters. But, of course, as you have been hearing, Oliver Dowden as well, the party, former party chairman anyway, he decided the by-election losses were enough for him. But we're going to go now to the scene, I believe, which is Anna Riley, who's in Wakefield. Anna, how are you?
Good morning, Patrick. I'm well, thanks, and hope you are too. Yes, people here were waking up to the news that Simon Lightwood for Labour was their new MP here. There was a turnout of 39.1% in this constituency. Conservatives came second and Akif Akbar for the Independents came third, and there were 15 candidates running here for this seat. I'm now joined by Steve Billingham. He is a Wakefield resident, born and bred. Steve, just tell me what you think to this result here in Wakefield.
Well, obviously I'm delighted that the Conservatives lost, and I hope they never get back in here again. I voted independent. Akif Akbar, a good man, local man, would have done his best for Wakefield. I'm not displeased that Labour got in. I am a socialist, but I didn't vote Labour because they parachuted in a candidate ignoring 2 perfectly good local socialist candidates.
And why is it you're saying, you're so happy that Conservatives didn't come anywhere close here?
Well, I think nationally the Conservatives are a disaster. They seem to me to be destroying the country day by day. I see no good things at all.
And what do you think the new Labour MP here needs to focus on in Wakefield?
Well, now that he has been parachuted in, I think he needs to work very hard for Wakefield, because a lot of socialists will be watching him. Is he here just as a mouthpiece for a national party, or does he really intend to do his best for Wakefield? And that's what we're all watching for.
And what are the issues that matter to residents like you here in Wakefield?
Well, I think Wakefield needs a huge amount of regeneration cash. The council are the ones who are really working hard for us at the moment. And, of course, if their budgets are being squeezed by the Conservative Party as well, the temptation is for the public to blame the council, whereas the council are doing a brilliant job. So the new MP needs to work very hard for Wakefield via the council.
Thank you so much, Steve. So, yes, a lot of people here in Wakefield, the residents, will be looking to see what Simon Lightwood does next for their area.
Anna, thank you very, very much. Yes, cheers. Anna Riley there, of course, in Wakefield. Right, now, well, that was interesting. What do you make of that, OK? What do you make of that? That guy was, let's be honest with you, adamant, of course, that he doesn't want the Tories back in Wakefield. Are you that bothered? What do you think this message is that he's been sent there, Boris Johnson? Do you think he cares that much? Apparently, he was swimming in Rwanda, which is nice if he can do it, to be fair. He was swimming in Rwanda when this news dropped, but obviously we'll have to wait and see exactly how much this means to Boris. I understand that we can go very shortly. We'll go very shortly to Jeff Moody, who's in Tiverton, so we're going to get the reaction on that ground. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. Tom, are you there? You're Downing Street, I believe. Yes, he is. Good stuff. Very much at Downing Street.
That's right.
Tom, what's the reaction, Tom?
Well, it's a pretty surprising situation that we find ourselves in this morning. The resignation of the party chairman apparently took the Prime Minister by surprise. Not many people expected that Oliver Dowden would resign off the back of these by-election defeats because, to some extent, these were expected defeats. Few people thought the Conservatives would hold these seats. There was some hopeful expectation amongst Conservatives that they might reduce or make it a smaller swing in favour of the opposition parties. Some thought they might be able to hold on to Tiverton. That now seems to be the most ludicrous sort of expectation, given the seismic swing, 30 points in favour of the Liberal Democrats. Although, I suppose taking a step back, we are mid-term, 2.5 years into a 5-year parliament, and we have seen these sort of swings, particularly when it comes to the Liberal Democrats before. We've, of course, seen the Liberal Democrats take 2 seats in the space of this parliament, both off seismic Conservative majorities, but also, interestingly, in Radnorshire, in Wales, before the last election, the Liberal Democrats took a similar big swing, took a seat, but then lost it at the 19 general elections. So there's a question as to how much can be read into specific by-election results. And let's not forget, of course, the context in which these by-elections came about, both an MP resigning in disgrace over watching porn twice in the House of Commons and and incredibly seriously in Wakefield, of course, a former MP resigning in disgrace after having become a convicted sex offender, having been convicted of sexual assault against a 15-year-old boy. This was the context, the local context of these by-elections, which no doubt fed into this as well. I think one political takeaway from what has gone on overnight, really, is the cooperation, for want of a better word, between the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party. Virtually no Labour Party campaigning down in Tiverton, and virtually no Labour campaigning up in Wakefield. We often hear about words of a progressive alliance, somehow these parties cooperating with each other or using their resources in a more targeted way, and perhaps this sort of nascent Lib-Lab pact is something we need to keep a closer eye on in many seats where the combined Liberal Democrat and Labour votes may be ahead of the Conservative vote. How much will this cooperation continue in the next few years? This could be a pretty important moment in our politics.
Look, Tom, thank you very much on the scene. You're going to be a busy man today. I imagine you were a busy man last night as well. So there we go. Tom Harwood there, our political correspondent at Downing Street. Look, how much do you read into this, people? OK, so the Tories got a bit of a kicking, OK, which I think every single person was predicting. They lost those 2 seats. You had Tiverton, of course, they had Wakefield. Potentially, Tiverton was slightly less expected than Wakefield, but either way, it was kind of assumed, wasn't it, that they'd lose both of them. It's not that uncommon at this particular juncture in a serving government tenure that they would get a bit of a kicking in the local elections. Nonetheless, though, Oliver Dowden has decided to stand down. The party chairman has said enough is enough for him. Of course, Boris Johnson has survived a vote of confidence, so They can't really send any more letters in, can they? How do you feel about this? GBviews at gbnews.uk. I'll make sure, promise you, that we'll go to those views very, very shortly, because I want to hear from you. It's a big news day, this, people, so let's do it together. Anyway, moving away. The policing minister has exclusively told GB News that he's very, very confident that the government will meet its target of 20,000 new police officers, almost the exact same number that they reduced earlier, but we'll leave that, across England and Wales by next March. So Kit Malthouse was speaking on a visit to Suffolk Constabulary, which has recruited now more than 100 new officers in recent months. They need to get a move on if they're going to get 20,000. Anyway, despite some high-profile policing scandals recently, the minister told our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, that the vast majority of the public still trust the police, and many would be happy to have a career in the police force. I don't like the way police service. It's police force, in my opinion. Anyway, Mark White tells us more.
Silver BMW X3, showing insurance not held. Insurance not held.
On patrol with a team from Suffolk Constabulary's Sentinel unit in Ipswich Town Centre. They're tasked with combating drug crime. As they patrol, they're pulled over by a member of the public.
Just saw two lads in there exchanging something.
As they turn the vehicle, one of the two young men runs off. Another is grabbed on his bike.
I didn't say anything, man. Yeah, OK. No? All right, OK.
With both eventually detained, officers find a bag of cannabis and arrest one of the men for dealing.
That is 120 quid worth of cannabis right there.
These units are being assisted by the recruitment of dozens of new officers across the force. On foot patrol in Ipswich, two of Suffolk's recent recruits.
Hiya, you all right?
Hannah Barrell and Megan Groom joined the force just over a year ago, part of the uplift of thousands of new officers across England and Wales. Hannah told us it's certainly a challenging job, but says it's absolutely the right move for her.
You're the one running to the danger, not away from it. So you do have to have a bit of a backbone in that sense. But you know you want to better your community and you want to help those vulnerable people that you might be going to.
Megan joined the force after studying criminology.
It's a tough job, physically and emotionally. Sometimes you do see some hard things that you sort of have to try and detach yourselves from. What I say to people, you don't, like myself, you don't know until you try.
So much going on! Can you just try and take a deep breath?
At police headquarters, the latest recruits are being put through challenging scenarios, watched over by the policing minister.
Wait, yeah, listen up, that car is sound out. Oh, sorry, you're under arrest. For what?
Although the police service has been hit by several recent scandals, Kit Malthouse believes the vast majority of the public still have confidence in the police, and many would be happy to make it their career.
We cannot take that trust for granted, and police leadership from top to bottom realise that you have to constantly reinforce those bonds of trust. So these extra 20,000 police officers that we're recruiting, making sure that a good proportion of them are out on the streets in uniform, building that bond every day. That's all part of the mix as well, and we cannot take that trust for granted. I know every police officer understands that.
These training scenarios are vital in preparing new recruits for what they might face out on the streets. Policing leaders say that those who opt for a career on the front line protecting the public, well, for them, this is a job like no other. The government has now added 13,500 new officers to police ranks across England and Wales. With a new recruitment drive launched this week, the policing minister says he's very confident they'll meet their overall target of 20,000 new officers by next March. Mark White, GB News, Ipswich.
Mark, important stuff. Look, we're going to go to the headlines shortly, but before that, obviously, because this is such important stuff, we're going to go live now to Kevin Hurley, who was the Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner between November 2012 and May 2016. He previously served in the Met Police, reaching the rank of Detective Chief Superintendent. And, of course, as well, as you can see, we've got Parm Sandhu, who's a former Chief Superintendent in the Met Police and author of Black and Blue. Parm, let's start with you first. Thank you very much. What do you make of all of that?
I think it's a lovely thought and aspiration, and politicians always make promises. I'm not sure that it will be a reality, and I can see Kevin nodding there.
Well, there we go. We've already found a point of agreement. Kevin, I'll just ask you the same question. Keep it broad brush. What do you make of what you've just heard there?
Yeah, it's great news, but what they're not saying is that they've got a 30% attrition rate right now on new joiners, and they've got a very significant attrition rate on experienced officers, which is the real worry here. The bottom line on it is a new joiner in a provincial force starts on round about 22,000 a year, is expected to do a degree part-time.
Yeah.
All this talk about recruiting from diverse groups, you can't even recruit them from what might have been called the earlier indigenous population in the UK.
Yeah, Kevin, Palmer, I'll lob this one back over to you because, to be honest with you, as far as I can see, it's a real shame, this, but being a police officer does not look like an attractive job these days.
It's a great job.
Sorry, no, Kevin's is for Palmer. Mr. Palmer, I'll come back to you, Kevin.
Even in London, even in London, the wages are 31,000, and that's in London, and outside London it's lower.
And for what you have to deal with, Palmer, for what you have to deal with as well, it's a lot, Palmer, it's a lot.
And with the cost of living, you're driving in. You can't use public transport at night or when you're doing earlies. You're driving in, so you've got your petrol costs. Now, if you've got a family, a partner, children, how do you bring them up on 31,000 and pay your mortgage and your bills? Add to that the culture that needs reform and needs change, and then add on top of that the fact that police services or forces, whatever you want to call them, are not tackling that culture, and trust and confidence has been eroded over a number of times over a number of years because of the scandals.
Yeah, well, and on that point, seamless this Palm. I must say, Kevin, I'll throw that one over to you because, look, the Sarah Everard stuff. Obviously, we had the issues of police officers, just taking pictures of dead bodies, frankly, as well. I mean, it's been scandal hit recently. I don't think Cressida Dick did anything to help matters, did she? She seemed a bit useless as far as I could tell. But the reputational damage for the police force does seem quite bad, Kevin.
Well,
which is a shame.
First point I would make, that I hate to say it, in the scheme of things, these are blips on what goes on every day and has gone on for 120, 140 years in policing. Turning to the issue, no matter how awful they are, turning to the issue of recruitment, people join because they want to think they're going to get a good salary when they start, amongst other issues. And I have to say, I absolutely loved it. I enjoyed every day going to work. In fact, I still work now as a policing advisor abroad, but I would not join now on the money they're paid.
Yeah, I mean, look, I suppose, dare I say it, Palm, is it really about the money? If you join the police force, it's a sense of duty. It's a sense of national duty and national pride. I understand you've got to pay the bills, right? But realistically, I would have thought that there's a sense of pride. But the problem is now, pride is probably the right turn of phrase, because they're all being made to wear rainbow helmets and stuff, aren't they, for goodness sake?
I loved being a police officer, and I still recommend it to people, friends, family, and I still mentor people who are within the service, because the only way that you're going to make the changes that police services need is by being part of that organisation. So I would recommend it, but I think that they do need to be paid.
They need to be paid
properly,
more.
and they need to be respected properly, and there needs to be some real police reform.
Yeah. Kevin, just very quickly, sorry, very lastly now, you've got literally about 10 seconds, but can you just please try to sell the police force to me?
It's a fantastic job. Loved it, really varied, great. But if you think you're going to buy a house for your family, run a decent car, or go on foreign holidays, you better get another job, because the pay is appalling. As Palm said in London, it's quite dreadful.
Look, both of you, thank you. Sorry to cut this short. As you know, we had a lot of stuff going on at the top of the show with Prince Charles and Boris Johnson in Rwanda as well. So, sorry, it's been a bit short and sweet, but thank you very, very much. That was Kevin Haley, of course, who was the Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner between November 2012 and May 2016. And as you can see as well, the wonderful Palm Sandhu as well, who is a former Chief Superintendent in the Met and author of Black and Blue. So there we go. Thank you very, very much, both of you. Sorry to cut it short. And also, sorry to be a bit late to your latest headlines. Get those views coming in. There's lots to get stuck into here. First and foremost, you have Boris Johnson. Obviously, the 2 by-election defeats. Are you shocked at that? Do you care? Does it bother you? And then, as well, obviously, he's in Rwanda. He's with Prince Charles. What do you make of that? Awkward cup of tea, as our royal correspondent Cameron Walker said as well, because apparently Prince Charles privately said he doesn't agree with the Rwanda deal. And then we've got that as well, haven't we, about the police lack of recruitment. But I think it's about time, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the headlines.
Thank you, Patrick. It's 10:36. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Boris Johnson says he will keep going despite suffering double by-election defeats, a warning the following footage contains flashing images. In the Devon seat of Tiverton and Honiton, the Liberal Democrats overturned a 24,000 Tory majority, while in West Yorkshire, Labour reclaimed the Red Wall seat of Wakefield. The Prime Minister, who's in Rwanda for a Commonwealth summit, suggested the results are mainly down to the cost of living crisis.
Absolutely true that we've had some tough by-election results, and they've been, I think, a reflection of a lot of things, but we've got to recognise that voters are going through a tough time at the moment, and I think that as a government I've got to listen to what people are saying, and in particular to the difficulties people are facing over the cost of living, which is, I think, for most people the number one issue.
Well, after his party's by-election victory, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, meanwhile, has called Wakefield the birthplace of the next Labour government.
The Tory party is absolutely imploding. They know they're out of ideas and they're out of touch. And if they had any decency, they'd get out of the way for the next Labour government, because what happened here in Wakefield was people exercising their judgment on this Conservative government and voting no confidence.
Well, first thing this morning, Tory party chairman Oliver Dowden handed in his resignation following the double defeat. In an open letter to the Prime Minister, he wrote that somebody needed to take responsibility for the results. The Prince of Wales has told Commonwealth leaders they have the freedom to choose whether or not they become a republic. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the summit in Rwanda, he also said the decision to keep the Queen as head of state is a matter for each member country to decide.
The benefit of long life brings me the experience that arrangements such as these can change calmly and without rancour. We should never forget the things which do not change. The close and trusted partnership between Commonwealth members, our common values and shared goals, and perhaps most importantly, the strong and enduring connections between the peoples of the Commonwealth, which strengthen us all.
TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.227 US and 1.164 euros. The price of gold currently stands at £1,487 and 76 pence per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News, investments that matter.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick.
Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Right, OK, yes, hello everybody, it's 10:42. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News, very much live on your TV, online and radio this morning. Now, could we be facing a summer of travel chaos? Tomorrow, the last of 3 rail strikes this week will hit services up and down the country, and the RMT union says that the strikes could, quote, escalate if a deal is not struck. Well, meanwhile, hundreds of British Airways workers at Heathrow Airport have voted to go on strike over pay. The dates are likely to be over the summer, peak holiday season, maximum damage, people. That's what's trying to happen here, maximum damage. Well, in a moment, we'll be looking at the economic impact on those strikes. But first, we are joined by GB News' national reporter, Paul Hawkins. Thank you very much, Paul. You're at Heathrow Airport. I mean, it's a good job you don't want to get a flight, because it sounds like you might not be able to get on one. But what's going on?
Yeah, hi Patrick. Right now, they're in talks to try and avoid these strikes that have been announced by the GMB union and the Unite union. Now, these are mostly women that are affected. They're called above-the-wing staff at British Airways. So they work landside, that is before you go through security, the kind of mostly women who check in your baggage, check your documentation, put your bag on the conveyor belt, and then away it goes. And then it's also the women that are at the boarding gate just before you board the plane. Now, many of them are unhappy because British Airways cut their pay by 10% during the pandemic. They now want that reinstated with back pay, and they want the 10% bonus, which other colleagues have been promised. Now, BA say, look, we've made a promise of a one-off payment of 10% of your pay, not a 10% pay reinstatement, but a one-off bonus, and that's all we can afford at the moment. The pandemic cost us £4 billion in lost revenue. We've had to make job losses, so we think this is a generous offer, but they're saying no. Bosses' pay, they claim, the union claims, has been reinstated to pre-pandemic levels, so they want their pay reinstated with back pay, and until they get that, they're going on strike. Now, we don't have dates for those strikes. The 8th of July would be the earliest possible date because of the legislation in place, which means you have to give your employer 2 weeks' notice before you go on strike. The 8th of July would be the first weekend for public schools that go on holiday. After that, the 22nd of July is the first weekend for all the schools when they potentially could take their first holidays. So obviously the unions are looking to cause maximum disruption. There would be no point in having a strike if it caused minimum inconvenience. So we wait to hear about the strikes. If your holiday is affected, then what you need to do is get in touch with your airline, and they have to offer you an alternative flight on the same day. Potentially, by law, that has to be that could even be with another airline. So that's how it's looking at the moment. But yeah, more inconvenience potentially on the way for if you're travelling from Heathrow with British Airways. By the way, Gatwick City Airport, Stansted not affected, but flights, of course, from Heathrow to other airports will be affected, and it's only from terminals 3 and 5 here at Heathrow.
Yeah, Paul, thank you very, very much. And good stuff. They're getting very windswept outside Heathrow Airport. They're giving you the latest. But, of course, I suppose there's a wider effect, not just your travel, there's the economic impact of these strikes as well. And joining me now is economist Julian Jessup. Julian, thank you very much. Well, how bad is the economic impact? I've read several different figures on this. It started out 150 million quid, these rail strikes are going to cost us. Then it was $1 billion. I mean, what is it today?
Well, I'd certainly start with a number around about 1 billion. As it happens, the evidence so far is that the overall impact on the economy hasn't been too great. I think that's partly a reflection of the fact that many more people can now work from home. Those people that do need to get to work, most of them have alternatives that they can use, buses, carpooling or whatever. And on top of that, we did know about these strikes in advance, so people were able to plan ahead. So the overall economic impact, I think, might be smaller than some people feared. However, that, of course, is no consolation for people struggling to get into work, and they're certainly going to have a very miserable time. There are lots of people who can't work from home, and also a lot of people who are self-employed and maybe don't have generous or flexible employers who can help them along. On top of that, as your introduction said, it's not just going to be rail strikes, it's going to be other strikes as well. You mentioned airline staff. There's talk that lots of other people might go out on strike as well, including teachers, for example. So I think we're due a very difficult period over the summer. And of course, that's on top of everything else that's going wrong, particularly the cost of living crisis. So I don't think the individual strikes are going to cripple the economy, but added to everything else that's going on, and if there's a series of strikes, I think it's definitely something to worry about.
I know that you're an economist and wouldn't, not trying to drag you down a difficult path or anything, but given the cost, there's a moral argument potentially against this, isn't there, at the moment? The cost of living crisis that we're all struggling with, right? I suppose then the flip side of it is there's no point having a strike if it doesn't cause some disruption, otherwise no one cares. So I can see both sides of it. I personally would not be striking, but do you think they morally should be striking at the moment?
Well, I've got some sympathy for lower paid workers, so particularly check-in staff at airports and so on. But I still, if I were them, would not be looking to strike for two reasons. I mean, one is that the employers themselves are struggling enormously. If we look at particularly industries like rail and air transport, I mean, they're effectively making huge losses, only just recovering from the massive shock of the pandemic, and now dealing with the broader slowdown in the economy as well. So there is a risk that if you go on strike, you may simply tip your employer over the edge and end up losing your job. The second point is that it's not necessarily the responsibility of companies to protect their staff against a cost of living crisis, which is an external shock. I think that's really down to the government. The government should be doing more, perhaps in terms of additional payments, cost of living support payments and so on, cutting fuel costs and so on. I don't think we always look to employers to solve these problems.
Can I ask you something? Now, this might seem... Well, I mean, I'm known for being quite blunt at times, to be fair, Julian, but you are an economic expert. Now, OK, in the grand scheme of things, would you say that you think that maybe tube drivers or train drivers are paid arguably more than what they're worth?
Oh, I think that's very hard to say. I mean, it is a pretty skilled and responsible job driving a train. I certainly couldn't do it. But it is odd to say that train drivers on, I don't know, 40, 50,000 pounds a year
60k to drive a tube.
Bigger pay rise. Sorry?
60k to drive a tube.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that's a highly experienced upper end person, but it certainly does seem odd that some of the workers who are going on strike, either RMT members or ASLEF members, are relatively well paid compared to the people that rely on the services that they provide. So I think that is an issue. There's a broader economic point here. I mean, of course, we'd all like bigger pay rises. The question is, can the employer afford those? And if those pay rises are not justified by increases in productivity, and in particular if the company itself is struggling because of a lack of demand, then where is the money going to come from to pay higher wages? In the case of people travelling by rail, I mean, clearly rail passengers are going to have to pay more. And that
this is it. And Julian, sorry, I hate to interrupt you. I'm sorry. It's just we're a bit pressed for time. And I want to get your take on something really quickly because look, I will hold my hands up. Right, my bank account looks like the Somme. Economics is not my thing. All right, so I'm deferring to your better judgment here. If everyone got a pay rise in line with inflation, what would the consequences of that be?
Well, the short answer is that in itself would push up inflation further because unless those pay rises are justified by increased productivity, that's an increased cost for the employer. Where's the money going to come from? I mean, some companies make big profits. Maybe they can afford to make smaller profits in future, but many don't. They have to pass that cost on, and ultimately it gets passed on to customers in the form of higher prices. So we might all end up with higher wages, but we also all end up paying higher prices. And the net result, in real terms, is that we're no better off. And some people, of course, then be priced out of work, so unemployment rises too.
Yeah, absolutely. Julian, can I just say, always an absolute pleasure, my good man. Thank you very much. Julian Jessup, there, economist extraordinaire. But anyway, there we go. Right, OK, so we're going to move on from that now. And I'll tell you what, this show's been wild so far, hasn't it? We went to Rwanda. We've had Boris Johnson over there. We've had a by-election loss, 2 by-election losses. We've had the police force struggling to recruit people. And we've just basically debunked the myth that if you go on strike, you get any extra cash. Anyway, to mark Children's Hospice Week, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge visited East Anglia's Children's Hospice's site in Milford yesterday. And Kate has been their patron for 10 years. Our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, has more.
Son Douglas, unfortunately, was diagnosed with cancer. He actually died at home, but they sent nurses out and so on.
The impossible decision. Where does your child's life come to a close? That's the reality for parents supported by the 54 children's hospices across the UK, who provide a lifeline for families caring for seriously ill children. The theme of this year's campaign, highlighting a service that largely relies on donations, is for the children, reminding us all, according to the Duchess of Cambridge, that children's hospices can bring joy and help families spend happy times together. Kate has been royal patron of the East Anglian Children's Hospice for 10 years and visited their site in Milton yesterday with Prince William. Chief Exec Phil Gormley thinks her warm persona makes her the perfect patron.
It means a huge amount. I mean, you can see the excitement that it brought the staff, the volunteers and the children and their parents here. And it does 2 things, really. It's for the last 10 years really brought to public attention the issues surrounding children's palliative care, because it's a small sector. So she's brought real profile and real human personal interest to this.
What started as a respite is now relied on by families across East Anglia. The Duke and Duchess were taken on a tour of the hospice and met young patients and their families, including Henry Wright, whose son Douglas died of cancer when he was 4 years old. Henry remembers happy moments in the sensory garden.
In the early days of the treatment, when he was feeling good and he was actually in remission, we came here and we had some really good days, particularly in sort of the play areas and things, sort of running around, and they looked after us, you know, and he got a day. It's not a hospital environment, it's not clinical. So we've got really good memories of here.
Just 16% of the charity's funding came from governments the year before the pandemic. This year, the charity has to raise more than £10 million in donations. Having a royal patron, staff thinks, helped secure their future. Families here make the most of their time together. Parents can be parents and not just carers. And staff believe the Duchess's decade in raising awareness means that more families understand the lifeline hospice care can provide. Cameron Walker, GB News, Cambridgeshire.
Yeah, thank you for that, Cameron, because that is a really important story, actually. And I mean, when you hear those figures, sometimes it's astonishing. To raise 10 million quid in a year is staggering, OK? Absolutely staggering. Can I just say something very quickly, which is that I am actually currently also trying to raise a bit of money for the mental health charity Mind, obviously not trying to detract from that very worthy cause, just thought it was an opportunity to raise this now. It's justgiving.com/fundraising/challenge Christie's. And you wonderful people at home, right in the middle of a cost of living crisis, as we've spoken about already today, ladies and gentlemen, right in the middle of that cost of living crisis, you have managed to raise more than £21,000 already. And I really, really appreciate that. If we can try to hit 50k, then that would be great. It's justgiving.com/fundraising/challenge Christie's. But OK, earlier in the show, we did hear from Prince Charles at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Kigali in Rwanda. At least we sent someone to Rwanda, saying that while our common threads are in pain, apparently, but our common values are our common wealth. And seemingly, of course, he gives his blessings for other countries to leave the Commonwealth. Here's what he had to say.
The benefit of long life brings me the experience that arrangements such as these can change calmly and without rancour. We should never forget the things which do not change. The close and trusted partnership between Commonwealth members, our common values and shared goals, and perhaps most importantly, the strong and enduring connections between the peoples of the Commonwealth which strengthen us all.
Yeah, I imagine that's divided opinion, but joining me now is Michael Cole, a former royal correspondent at the BBC. Thank you very much for coming on. What do you think of that, Michael, then? What was his intention there? Do you think this is a green light to, I suppose, for everyone to leave the Commonwealth?
Well, the Commonwealth is a unique organisation, and it's voluntary membership. People line up to get in. In fact, we're talking about Rwanda. Rwanda was never part of the British Empire. First of all, it was a German colony in Central Africa. Then it was a Belgian one. And like Mozambique, which was Portuguese, they both applied to join the Commonwealth because it brings a tremendous amount, and the Queen has always recognised this, our common values, freedom, democracy, and indeed when there have been countries that have strayed away from democracy and freedom, they've been ejected from the Commonwealth and then later readmitted. So it's a tremendous organisation. The Queen, of course, it was partly set up by her father. He was a leading light in it, King George VI, and she has made that the main plank of her record-breaking reign. And Prince Charles has been designated as her successor as head of the Commonwealth. Now, you can argue about that. Indeed, I argued about it in a debate which was held in the Palace of Westminster a few years ago. I said there should be an elected head of the Commonwealth, but they went with a successive one from the British throne, which also works. It's the cement.
Michael, can I just? Sorry about this. It's just we're really pressed for time. We've had an absolutely manic show here, and I just want to get something from you quickly before we have to ditch you. But do you think though that Prince Charles should be saying stuff like this? I think a lot of people are concerned that he's gone a bit too woke, and for want of a better phrase, maybe losing his core audience.
Yeah, I think Clarence House, where he lives, tried to play down any differences, any political differences. He would be very unwise, and I would be very surprised if he strayed too far into the political arena, because his job at a Commonwealth conference, which this is to act as a royal referee, to bring people together, to make decisions, and actually to find common ground. And he shouldn't go away from that. He would lose his strength and his authority if he did so.
Michael, thank you so much, and sorry to keep that short and sweet, but I'm sure you can understand we were overtaken by events somewhat at the start of this show. Michael Cole there, of course, former royal correspondent at the BBC. But what do you think, people? I think that, well, if you're just joining us, by the way, Prince Charles was basically in Kigali saying that, kind of giving the green light, really, I think, for the, should we say, streamlining of the Commonwealth, to be honest. Also, apologising for what he was calling, historic wrongs, slavery, this, that and the other. Do you think he needs to? Do you think he needs to do all of that kind of thing? Is he gone a bit woke? But keep all your thoughts coming into us on email, gbviews@gbnews.uk. We'll be back with more of today's top stories and plenty of your views after this weather.
Hello, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Again, today the weather's going to be fairly mixed. Some warm sunshine, but also some heavy downpours, and that mixture of sunshine and showers will continue through the weekend. We are, though, going to see things turning cooler and fresher through the weekend as this cold front moves in. But it's only slowly approaching at the moment. It'll bring some wet weather later to parts of the southwest, Wales and Northern Ireland. Ahead of it, we've still got the relatively warm and humid air, and the Met Office have issued a yellow thunderstorm warning. We're concerned about downpours over parts of northeast England and southeast Scotland. Hit and miss, but some torrential rain is possible. Large hailstones could also be an issue. Elsewhere, one or two showers, but plenty of sunny spells across much of Scotland. Some brighter weather across the east. We'll see temperatures again into the mid-20s, but elsewhere temperatures a little lower than of late and turning fresher as this band of rain moves in through the evening. So most places seeing some rain during the overnight period. That band of rain swinging its way northwards. That is that cold front, and so temperatures won't be as high overnight. It will still be quite warm and humid this evening, so still quite uncomfortable for sleeping, but by morning temperatures will be that much lower and certainly a fresher feel on Saturday. Still sunny spells for many eastern areas on Saturday. Sunshine for most of the day across northeast Scotland, eastern parts of England, but further west, after a largely sunny start, the showers will get going. The showers will tend to zip through because it's also going to be quite blustery, unseasonably gusty winds around western coast in particular. That'll make it feel even cooler with temperatures in the mid-teens at best in some places. Still quite warm across eastern parts where we'll see the longest spells of sunshine. A few more of those showers drifting north across Scotland during Saturday evening. A bit more wet weather working into Northern Ireland at the same time. A big swirl of low pressure which will continue to throw showers across the country on Sunday, mostly in the west where it'll be windy, generally dry and sunny in the east.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Well, a very good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's, on your TV, radio, and, of course, online as well. We're with you all the way through until midday, with a show jam-packed with all of today's biggest stories. And I tell you what, this is a proper news day, ladies and gentlemen, a proper news day. We've had the by-election results, bit of a kick-in for the Tory party. We've got Boris in Rwanda, Prince Charles in Rwanda. There's talk of a police recruitment crisis. It's kicked right off, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we want your views as well. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Make sure you get in touch with your views, as usual, on that email address again. You can see it on your screens right now. If you're listening on radio, it's gbviews at gbnews.uk. We'll be going to those throughout the show. But first, time for your headlines.
Good morning, it's 3 minutes past 11. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Boris Johnson says he will keep going despite suffering double by-election defeats. A warning: the following footage contains flashing images. In the Devon seat of Tiverton and Honiton, the Liberal Democrats overturned a 24,000 Tory majority, while in West Yorkshire, Labour reclaimed the red wall seat of Wakefield. The Prime Minister, who's in Rwanda for the Commonwealth Summit, suggested the results are mainly down to the cost of living crisis.
Absolutely true that we've had some tough by-election results, and they've been, I think, a reflection of a lot of things, but we've got to recognise that voters are going through a tough time at the moment, and I think that as a government I've got to listen to what people are saying, and in particular to the difficulties people are facing over the cost of living, which is, I think, for most people the number one issue.
Well, after his party's by-election victory, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, meanwhile, has called Wakefield the birthplace of the next Labour government.
The Tory party is absolutely imploding. They know they're out of ideas and they're out of touch. And if they had any decency, they'd get out of the way for the next Labour government, because what happened here in Wakefield was people exercising their judgment on this Conservative government and voting no confidence.
Well, that as the newly elected Lib Dem MP for Tiverton and Honiton, Richard Ford, warned Tory MPs their seats are in danger.
Every day Boris Johnson clings to office, he brings further shame, chaos and neglect. If you don't take action to restore decency, respect and British values to Downing Street, you too will face election defeats like the one that we've seen here tonight.
Well, first thing this morning, Tory party chairman Oliver Dowden handed in his resignation following the double defeat. In an open letter to the Prime Minister, he wrote that somebody needed to take responsibility for the results. Mr Johnson said he understands Mr Dowden's disappointment with the by-election, but said he's sad to see him go. Members of the RMT working on the London Underground have voted to continue industrial action as the dispute over jobs, pay and conditions continues. 91% voted to withdraw their labour in the coming weeks and months, although no dates have yet been decided. Train services have been disrupted this week due to RMT walkouts, with a third day of strikes planned tomorrow. More unions say they'll ballot staff next week, making further strikes likely in the summer. The governor of the mostly Russian-occupied city of Severodonetsk has warned Ukrainian troops will have to be withdrawn. Some of the heaviest fighting of the Russian invasion has taken place in the Eastern Territory, with Moscow slowly taking more ground. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky has welcomed the European Union's decision to accept Ukraine as a membership candidate. And in the US, the Senate has passed a landmark bill to increase gun safety, the first significant firearms legislation to be agreed in 3 decades. The bill tightens background checks for people with domestic violence and juvenile convictions. It comes after a number of recent mass shootings, including one at a school in Uvalde in Texas, where 19 children were killed. President Joe Biden welcomed the vote, while Senator Chuck Schumer says it'll save lives.
This is not a cure-all for all the ways gun violence affects our nation, but it is a long overdue step in the right direction. Passing this gun safety bill is truly significant, and it's going to save lives.
The Prince of Wales has told Commonwealth leaders they have the freedom to choose whether or not they become a republic. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the summit in Rwanda, he also said the decision to keep the Queen as head of state is a matter for each member country to decide.
The benefit of long life brings me the experience that arrangements such as these can change calmly and without rancour. We should never forget the things which do not change. The close and trusted partnership between Commonwealth members, our common values and shared goals, and perhaps most importantly, the strong and enduring connections between the peoples of the Commonwealth which strengthen us all.
This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, though, it's back to Patrick with To The Point.
Good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's. Right, I'll tell you what, we had a manic first hour. The second hour, it looks like it's going to be in the same vein. I've got to go straight to Jeff Moody. Apparently something's kicked off in Tiverton. You all right there, Jeff? What's going on?
Well, what's going on is we're in the middle of a big demonstration here of support for the Liberal Democrats. They're right in the middle there. Sir Ed Davey is there. He's just finished making a speech. And Richard Ford, Britain's newest MP, is about to speak, I believe. There's banners everywhere. There's a sense of huge excitement and, of course, all of the media too. After this, there's going to be a parade, a walk through the high street and a walk through the town to greet people that voted in this historic election. Because whatever your political persuasion, however you voted, whatever your allegiances are, no one can deny this is a huge victory for the Liberal Democrats and a huge blow for Boris Johnson. People have been saying for some time now that it possibly would go the way of the Liberal Democrats, but it has gone their way, and in spades too. It's been a huge disaster for Boris Johnson. And it has to be said for the Labour Party too, who came second here in 2019, and now, by all accounts and according to my calculations, have lost their deposit. So a bad night here, at least, for Labour too. But let's not be too churlish. It's the Liberal Democrats' day, and they're out and about celebrating after very little sleep in the best way they know how, and that's going out and meeting the voters and touring the town that has now gone Lib Dem.
Look, Jeff, thank you very, very much. And yes, of course, just having to throw it over to you there at very short notice. Appreciate it. That's how you earn your money, Jeff. But there we go. We can see there that the Lib Dems obviously are celebrating. And you know what? Fair enough. I mean, they won it outright. And, you know, what does Boris Johnson do now? I suppose, Jeff Moody, thank you very much. We'll be going to you throughout the day, no doubt. Right, OK. I'm going to go to your views now, people. GBviews at GBnews.uk. Lots of them have been coming in. I've been threatening to go to your views for quite a while. I'm actually going to go and do it. So, this one here is from Sandy. Thank you very much, Sandy. I thoroughly support our Prime Minister. It's the mainstream media that have bumped their gums against... I don't know what I mean. Bumped their gums against him so much in their own bias that it's stuck in people's heads. I think, obviously, alluding to the fact that, baby, I think there has been quite a concerted campaign, actually, Sandy, let's be honest, to bring the PM down. They didn't get him over Partygate, they didn't get him over the wallpaper, they didn't get him over all sorts of stuff, and I think now maybe the strikes as well. We're witnessing a concerted effort to remove our PM. It's disgraceful, Sandy continues, how the newly elected MPs overly and personally slam Boris Johnson in their winning speeches. Well, I suppose any publicity is good publicity. Maybe not in this place, Sandy, but there we go. Right, we'll move on. Bob's been on. Disastrous results for the Conservative Party last night. Bob thinks it's time for Boris Johnson to step down, actually. He says, not only for the sake of the Tory party, but for the sake of the nation. He got us out of the EU, which personally I was pleased about. This is Bob's views, of course. I think his biggest problems are his advisers, along with the left-wing civil servants, especially his biggest enemy, Dominic Cummings. A new face I would like to see as our PM is Penny Mordaunt. And you know what, Bob? Look, I personally, I will not particularly. Well, I wouldn't like to see Boris go anywhere, really. I don't think we need that at the moment. And I'm not sure that there is a natural candidate. I'm not personally that sure that, Keir Starmer's necessarily equipped. But what I like about this, Bob, is that you've come up with a solution. In your mind, Penny Mordaunt is a successor. What I absolutely hate, and I'm sure you guys do at home as well, it's like with this Rwanda stuff, isn't it, with what's going on the channel? They go, right, well, this isn't right. Well, what's your solution then? Give us something. And at least Bob has been in touch and he said he would like Penny Mordaunt. If Boris Johnson does, which he's not going, but if he does go, right, who would you like to see replace him? We don't want to, as one of my former editors used to say to me, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions, all right? GBviews at gbnews.uk. We're back in Rwanda now, people. We've gone on holiday. I don't know why anyone would listen to Prince Charles, the woke eco-mentalist. And this is from Keith, clearly. By the way, if you look through history, every time Britain has had a King Charles, Britain has been at war. Keith, strong stuff, mate. Strong stuff. OK, there we go. Look, Steve's been on as well. Sorry, Tony, this is about the airport strikes. We've had so much to cover today. We've had Boris in Rwanda. We've had the by-election stuff. We've had Prince Charles in Rwanda. Like I said before, at least we've sent 2 people there. And also, as well, we've had the fact that the police are struggling to recruit. And that is what Tony has been in touch about. The major issue is that policemen on the beat are not tackling true crime. They're spending so much time watching their back in case they make a woke mistake. You know what, Tony? Look, well, I agree with you, basically. I agree with you, because it must be a nightmare. You're on camera all the time. Can you imagine what that looks like? Can you imagine how that feels? You're on camera all the time. You're only ever one mistake away from disaster when you're on camera all the time. And seriously, though, they've got to go, go to the worst possible events that they could possibly go to. They see the very, very worst of society. A lot of the time as well, they're dealing with things that they're not actually equipped for as well, aren't they? With the best one in the world, a lot of it is dealing with people's mental health. You've got to go knock on a door, and then you spend hours with them. And the pay is not particularly great. So, yes, I can understand, Tony, why there is a recruitment crisis in our police force. Thank you, everyone who's been getting in touch. Keep them coming, people. I'll go to more of your views before the end of this show. GBviews at gbnews.uk. But, of course, in the last hour, Prince Charles has been addressing, well, the people of Rwanda and indeed the world as well. But joining me now is Tim Montgomery, who's a political commentator, former advisor to Boris Johnson. And we're going to talk to you, I believe, about what's been going on with the by-elections before we return to Prince Charles's comments in Rwanda. Tim, great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, there's a lot to get stuck into here. The Lib Dems are obviously chuffed. Labour's pretty chuffed. How bad is this for Boris?
I think it's pretty bad, but the worst thing that really happened to him, of course, was a couple of weeks ago when he lost the confidence of 148 of his own MPs. I was talking to Conservative MPs last night at about 10 o'clock, and some of them, the Wakefield by-election was written off a long time ago, but some of them at 10 o'clock last night, based on intelligence from Tory HQ, still thought there was a hope that the Conservatives could hold on to that seat. And in reality, it was lost very badly by the Conservatives. And I think that has worried a few Conservative MPs as well, because they're worried about how good the Conservative ground operation is now in terms of basic competence about understanding what's going on with voters.
Obviously, there are these arguments, aren't there, that at this particular point in a sitting government's tenure, you get a bit of a kicking at local elections. But it wasn't great, was it? Let's be honest with you. It wasn't great. Boris clearly is not going anywhere. Can I just say, he went to Kiev when he could have gone to the north last week, OK? He could have done. And I'm just wondering, he's the Prime Minister of this country. He's not in charge of Ukraine. Should he focus more on these red walls? I'm from the north, right? So, it doesn't look to me like... I'm not bashing Boris here.
You always seem to end up down south. I've noticed that.
Yeah, well, the money's bad. No, seriously,
You're incredibly welcome.
Seriously, though. Seriously, it doesn't look to me like Boris Johnson is doing too much to keep the north.
No. Well, what is he doing, Patrick? Generally, he won the majority in 2019. He won it. That was a massive achievement by him, and we should never forget that he was the one, therefore, that got Brexit over the line, that stopped Jeremy Corbyn becoming Prime Minister. But then he kind of seemed to put his feet up. Then, Mrs. Thatcher would have seen that as the beginning of her purpose in politics. She would have been there thinking, can I solve the housing crisis? Can I simplify the tax system? She would have wanted to change Britain for the good. Not everyone would have, of course, agreed with what she did. But winning power wasn't her objective. Using power was her objective. I think what this government has done for the people of Ukraine makes me proud. But there's very little else that makes me proud about this Conservative government. Taxes are going up. Regulation is going up. We're not controlling our borders. We have climate policy.
Well, that is an issue. That is an issue. It's not good. No, sorry to interrupt, but we've only got a couple of minutes. I want to crack on with you really about this. Look, I mean, the argument when Boris faced that vote of confidence, OK, the argument that came out, the line was he's got the big calls right, and I've got to be honest with you, Tim. I'm inclined to believe that, because there have been some big calls. I think, as you rightly said about what we've done in Ukraine, if the EU had it their way, Ukraine would be Russian now and they'd be dealing with a humanitarian crisis. We're actually trying to stop it being Russian, which I think is better, right? The vaccine rollout, look, whether or not people agree with the vaccine, whatever, I'm not here to comment on that. That was good, right? OK, that was good, and it was better than a lot of other countries. OK, so in a way, you can see he's got the big calls right. My concern is...
Two things, Patrick. You've mentioned two, and the list normally stops.
They're pretty big, though. Yeah, but
pretty big.
Just quickly, Steve, sorry, I am waffling on a bit here, but I think if he doesn't get control of what's going on in the Channel, he doesn't get control of immigration, I've got to be honest with you, I think that's unforgivable.
Yeah. Well, a moment of unity between us.
How does he do it then, Tim? Come on, come to me with solutions, not problems, like I said earlier. What's the answer?
Well, my real disappointment with the Conservative Party at the moment is, I'm a Conservative because we've always been the practical party. We've been the party of business people. We've been the party, people who served in the armed forces, that experienced people who know that the facts of life, how the world works. And now we fast forward people into government. They've hardly been shadow ministers. They don't know their way around the block. They're obsessed with their media coverage or their Instagram account. Miss Thatcher, people used to be terrified of going into the study of Margaret Thatcher because a minister would be grilled on the minutiae of policy. There's not a single minister in this government that fears going into the study of Boris Johnson, because we're just not taking the hard work of government seriously. Government is, as they say, 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. It's about doing the hard yards. It's about understanding policies, about navigating through the civil service and the courts so you can actually deport people to Rwanda. This government isn't doing that.
OK, yes. Now, can I just ask, I usually do this, I've got screens everywhere here. What is that painting behind you?
It's Old Trafford, Manchester United.
Oh, here he is. Yes, get in. I knew it. Yes, is that the Stretford End?
It is, yeah. It's a very wet, move out of the way. It's a very wet autumn day. And
well, it's Manchester.
Yeah, of course, Manchester, of course.
Good stuff. Tim, look, thank you very much, mate. Good stuff. Great to have you on the show. A regular fan favourite as well, Tim Montgomery there, of course. Just discussing, well, I mean, there's a lot to pick through, isn't there? These by-election defeats. What do you think about the by-election defeats? Do you think that now maybe Boris Johnson's position is untenable? I suspect not a lot of you do, but let's have a look. Right, so we've got some views here. So we asked loads of them. Sandy's been back on. Obviously, she says that is disgraceful how the newly elected MPs, these are in, of course, Tiverton and as well Wakefield, where the Tories lost 2 by-elections, OK? She's saying that it's disgraceful how the new MPs basically personally slammed Boris Johnson. OK, yeah, I agree with you, but I mean, I suppose that's what they do, isn't it? Bill, Prince Charles should be very careful about the subject of Commonwealth countries becoming republics, lest it encourages UK republicanism. And that's a really good point. Now, if you are just joining us, right at the very start of the show, we were, I was going to say treated, but I'm not sure that's how it went down, treated to Prince Charles in Rwanda, where he basically was saying, look, you apologise for the historic wrongs, and the classic, right? You apologise for historic wrongs, slavery, etc. And I think a lot of people, the takeaway I took from it, anyway, was that he kind of was giving a bit of a green light for people to leave the Commonwealth, right? Which I think is a massive shame and something arguably he should not have done, but that seems to be what he's done. And I think Bill's got a good point here, right? If he's basically constantly saying sorry for stuff that isn't his fault and constantly saying sorry for stuff that, frankly, isn't our fault either, mate, historic wrongs, it's going to weaken, I think, the strength of the monarchy over here. I think Bill's got a point. Does it encourage republicanism here? Does it encourage people, your usual types around the Islington area, who are saying that actually we should abolish the monarchy? I think Prince Charles might have just been like a turkey vote for Christmas there. But there we go. Barry's been on. It's utterly absurd to apologise for the actions of past generations. Good man, Barry. The concepts of past generations were formed from the norms, beliefs and prejudices of that time. And, this is what I call the Winston Churchill debate, right? Every single year, once a year, I used to get asked to go on the telly and debate whether or not Winston Churchill was a villain, right? Which, of course, he wasn't. I mean, we'd all be speaking German if it wasn't for Winston Churchill, as far as I can see, right? But obviously, he was a man of his time, wasn't he? And so the idea now that our forefathers and foremothers, if that's even a word, should have had the foresight to have not done some of the abominable things that they did, I think that's a bit of a big ask, OK? I'm obviously not condoning anything. I'm just saying it would have been unnatural almost for them at that particular time to have the kind of views that you and I have today, 200 years ago. I mean, I don't see how that's reasonable to suggest that. But anyway, there we go. Thank you, everyone, for your views. I've got loads of them here. I'll go to them throughout the show. But after the break, Boris Johnson has admitted that Ukrainian refugees could be forcibly removed to Rwanda if they arrive in the UK through unauthorised means. His comments came as he's visiting the African country. Our political editor is over there, actually, right now, and he'll be speaking to us after this break.
Hello, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Again, today the weather's going to be fairly mixed. Some warm sunshine, but also some heavy downpours, and that mixture of sunshine and showers will continue through the weekend. We are, though, going to see things turning cooler and fresher through the weekend as this cold front moves in. But it's only slowly approaching at the moment. It'll bring some wet weather later to parts of the southwest, Wales and Northern Ireland. Ahead of it, we've still got the relatively warm and humid air, and the Met Office have issued a yellow thunderstorm warning. We're concerned about downpours over parts of northeast England and southeast Scotland. Hit and miss, but some torrential rain is possible. Large hailstones could also be an issue. Elsewhere, well, 1 or 2 showers, but plenty of sunny spells across much of Scotland. Some brighter weather across the east. We'll see temperatures again into the mid-20s, but elsewhere temperatures a little lower than of late and turning fresher as this band of rain moves in through the evening. So most places seeing some rain during the overnight period. That band of rain swinging its way northwards. That is that cold front. And so temperatures won't be as high overnight. It will still be quite warm and humid this evening, so still quite uncomfortable for sleeping. But by morning, temperatures will be that much lower and certainly a fresher feel on Saturday. Still sunny spells for many eastern areas on Saturday. Sunshine for most of the day across northeast Scotland, eastern parts of England. But further west, after a largely sunny start, the showers will get going. The showers will tend to zip through because it's also going to be quite blustery, unseasonably gusty winds around western coast in particular. That'll make it feel even cooler with temperatures in the mid-teens at best in some places. Still quite warm across eastern parts where we'll see the longest spells of sunshine. A few more of those showers drifting north across Scotland during Saturday evening. A bit more wet weather working into Northern Ireland at the same time. A big swirl of low pressure which will continue to throw showers across the country on Sunday, mostly in the west where it'll be windy, generally dry and sunny in the east.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christys.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News. Well, a very good morning, everyone. It's just about to go 11:29. There we are. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys, right here on GB News. We're live on your TV, online and radio this morning. So this morning, more drama for the Conservative Party. They're down 2 seats and they've lost their co-party chairman as well. But Boris Johnson says he's staying put. And our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, is travelling with the PM, who is visiting the Commonwealth Summit of World Leaders. And he sends us this report.
Well, the Prime Minister waking up in Kigali here, Rwanda, this morning, faced a triple blow of bad news, those 2 by-election losses and the resignation of a cabinet minister. And it is Oliver Dowden's resignation, I think, which will most concern the Prime Minister. Clearly that letter, which many judged initially as an attempt to take a bullet for Boris Johnson, actually in many ways twisted the knife, a suggestion that's more than a suggestion, that clearly the concerns around the Prime Minister and Partygate have played badly with voters. And in the end, Oliver Dowden, while saying that he continues to have loyalty to the Conservative Party, didn't go quite as far as to say that that stretched to the Prime Minister himself. Now, we've heard from Boris Johnson this morning here in Kigali, and he's been trying to defend himself, essentially saying that this is all part of the kind of mid-term blues that governments face, that governments always lose by-elections and mid-term. He points to the fact that in different circumstances a year ago the Conservative Party managed to win the Hartlepool by-election, but he does recognise that the government needs to listen to voters' concerns. He thinks they are front and square around the cost of living crisis. But in the end, there is a recognition from Downing Street that this is incredibly difficult, particularly, as I say, that cabinet resignation. And all this, of course, while the Prime Minister is here at Chogam, the Commonwealth Summit, thousands and thousands of miles away from London. And in talking to officials from Downing Street over the last couple of weeks, I have to say their concern about the Prime Minister's premiership was not necessarily about a new vote of confidence. That one that happened a couple of weeks ago, which the Prime Minister did survive, meant that in theory, of course, there wouldn't be one held for another year. Their fear was around cabinet resignations. We've had one today. Oliver Dowden's, he's not senior enough in many ways, clearly, to bring down the House of Cards around the Prime Minister. But there will be continued concerns that this may not be the end. And the PM is not expected back in the UK until next week. There is a G7 summit in Germany at the start of next week, following this one here in Rwanda, and then there is a NATO summit in Madrid. And all this while, of course, politics at Westminster remains pretty febrile. It's all very tricky for Boris Johnson. He insists he is not going to go anywhere. He's going to continue he would suggest, work on the priorities for the British public. But ultimately, many of these things are outside of his control, as Oliver Dowden showed very clearly last night.
Yes, our political editor there, Darren McCaffrey, in Rwanda, which means that officially GB News has sent more people to Rwanda than this government. But there we are. Anyway, OK, right, we're going to go straight to the news now without further dither and delay with the wonderful Rihanna.
Patrick, thank you. It's 11:32. Your top stories from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says he will keep going despite suffering double by-election defeats. A warning: the following footage contains flashing images. In the Devon seat of Tiverton and Honiton, the Liberal Democrats overturned a 24,000 Tory majority, while in West Yorkshire, Labour reclaimed the red wall seat of Wakefield. Boris Johnson, who's in Rwanda for a Commonwealth summit, suggested the results are mainly down to the cost of living crisis.
Absolutely true that we've had some tough by-election results, and they've been, I think, a reflection of a lot of things, but we've got to recognise that voters are going through a tough time at the moment, and I think that as a government I've got to listen to what people are saying, and in particular to the difficulties people are facing over the cost of living, which is, I think, for most people the number one issue.
Meanwhile, the Lib Dem leader's in Tiverton, where he's been celebrating with his party's by-election victory. Speaking in the last half hour, Sir Ed Davey said it's time to show Boris Johnson the door.
Today, the Liberal Democrats have shown that the rule of Boris Johnson and this uncaring Conservative government can be ended. But today is just a start. So join us and let's get rid of them.
Well, first thing this morning, Tory party chairman Oliver Dowden handed in his resignation following that double defeat. In an open letter to the Prime Minister, he wrote that somebody needed to take responsibility for the results. And the Prince of Wales has told Commonwealth leaders they have the freedom to choose whether or not they become a republic. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the summit in Rwanda, he also said the decision to keep the Queen as head of state is a matter for each member country to decide. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.229 and 1.165 euros. The price of gold currently stands at £1,487.12 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News, investments that matter.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Morning all, it's 11:37. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News. We're live on your TV, online and radio this morning. Now, Instagram has started testing a new tool which is allowing users to verify their age using a video selfie or by asking mutual friends to vouch for them. So joining me to tell us more about what this is, basically, is tech journalist, friend of the channel as well. It's Will Guyatt. Thank you very much, Will. Great to have you back on the show. What's so important about this? Why do they have to verify people's age?
Well, it's a bit of a mess, the whole of the internet, when it comes to actually proving somebody is of age. So all the big social networks say you need to be 13 or above to have an account. But essentially, it was like me going down the cinema in the 1980s and claiming I was 15 when I clearly wasn't. There's no control there at the moment. And what Meta are trying to do here is introduce some kind of system which may prove age. Now, the most terrifying thing for this, for me, is that this is going to use artificial intelligence. Essentially, you're going to put a photo of a young person into the internet, and the internet is going to analyze how old that person is. That's one of the methods they're trying to do. This comes the same week as Microsoft is saying to customers that use some of its artificial intelligence tools that it's going to stop making them available because of the ethics and the unspoken about ethics of artificial intelligence. So, well, one company runs away from this technology, or at least puts it slightly back into the box, it would appear that Meta is running towards it as a potential solution for this age-old problem of how do you at least do your best as a company to stop underage people using social networks.
Well, I'm not sure whether or not... Yeah, OK, that's obviously one way of looking at it. Of course, the other way of looking at it is that there's a lot of people out there who are basically paedophiles. And you see this all the time, you know, like paedophile hunters, this, that and the other. It does seem absolutely amazing to me how many people out there clearly have untowards intentions towards children to put them out. So could this guard against that?
Patrick, I have to stop you there, and I love and respect you, but that is that's the biggest, most dangerous generalisation I have ever heard about the internet in my 20-year history of doing this. The internet is not full of paedophiles. There are bad users on the internet and people with bad intentions. I'm just clearing up what you just said there. There are bad people on the internet with bad intentions.
Yeah, right, fine, OK, fine. But is this designed to protect children against those people?
It's designed to protect children from content that's being seen by them, inappropriate content. It's designed to protect children in many ways. Yes.
OK, so it's a good thing, then?
Potentially a good thing. The bigger issue here you could look at is why is there not a better way of identifying how old people are on the internet? At the same time, several years ago, we had a government suggesting that a scratch card system, if I wanted to look at legal porn on the internet, was going to be the way that I was going to have to prove I was over 18 if I fancied looking at it. That's the situation we find ourselves in here. There's no perfect solution, so everybody is looking for something. Many would be concerned, though, Patrick, that they're uploading a photograph of their child into a system that somebody like Meta would own and have that system rate that child for age via artificial intelligence. It's a slippery slope. Does this information get saved? Where does it go after that? Nobody would argue with you that the internet needs to be safer and kids and anybody who's vulnerable needs to be protected on the internet. Nobody's disputing that, but I don't necessarily think there is an easy way of doing that. And some of that problem is the tech companies, and some of that problem is this continued reluctance to introduce any kind of state or national ID system which would stop this at source. You could then prove how old somebody was. You could then show them appropriate content, be that adult entertainment, be that a social network that says you need to be over 13 to have an account. It could stop advertising or gambling ads, let's say, being served at kids who are watching football matches through the internet. So many really important things could happen if the government developed a spine and decided it would do something like an ID system, which many people are against, but it would solve lots of these problems about verification.
It is. Look, it is a tricky one, because I think, look, inherently we can all agree, can't we, that we want online safety, we want people to be safe online, especially children. It's just a question, isn't it, which is the discussion we're having now about how you go about it, right? And, I am inherently, I would say I would naturally be against this idea of, kind of big tech when it comes to things like, facial recognition stuff or telling me how old I am. But then I'm just not sure what the other options are, Will.
But this is the problem. This is the same week as Google are suggesting, or somebody that worked for Google that's been suspended, suggested that their chatbot, their artificial intelligence chatbot, so this is machine learning, it's essentially a piece of computer code, had become sentient and had the same reasoning skills as a 7 to 8 year old. Now, this person's been slightly discredited because they then suggested that this piece of chatbot code had got an attorney of its own. But there's this whole situation that artificial intelligence is growing so quickly. The powers it have are growing so massively. Tech companies just aren't disclosing how quick this is going, and the ethics just aren't there. Governments are not governing this stuff at all.
Just a quick one, Will. Sorry, a bit off pieces. Well, I'll tell you what, we've covered a lot here, Will. But a bit off pieces. But is AI sentient? Because there was an article that came out last week. I think I covered it earlier this week, actually, about artificial intelligence. There's some guy who basically says he thinks it's got feelings.
Yeah, this is a piece of code that he says has got the emotional reasoning of a 7 or 8 year old, which is terrifying when you've got a 7 or 8 year old like I have. Yes, this is the problem. These companies are not talking about how quickly this technology is developing. This was saying, Patrick, it was scared of being switched off. It would be like dying to this particular piece of code. And when you get to that stage, you're not far off Terminator or HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey territory, a computer that decides to go rogue because it doesn't want to be switched off. This is why the whole conversation about artificial intelligence needs to be in the public arena. In the same way as everybody got obsessed about Brexit, nobody is talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning and automation, essentially taking probably around about 50% of all of our jobs within the next 20 years.
Yeah. Will, I think you're absolutely spot on, mate. I think absolutely spot on. I mean, I do feel a bit sorry for people who are, I'm taking this to an extreme example, but, the people who work on the tills next to the self-service checkout. Because you're basically looking at the robot that is going to take your job one day, essentially.
No. But we're not talking about that. Patrick, if you do this for long enough, the bosses of GBNews could take all your audio from all of your appearances, and you could have a deepfake Patrick Christie's doing this job. Now, arguably, that means you could be in Marbella, which is great for you, and you could be earning the money. Or your bosses could be using all of your appearances from X many years on GBNews to do your job for you. And for anybody who thinks I'm bonkers, look at all these deepfakes that are increasingly coming through from all of these organisations and people who are trying to pretend to be other people online.
Yeah, I mean, basically, what you've just done here, Will, and I thought we were getting on. What we've just done here is you've told my bosses how they can sack me. Not that they need any more excuses. How they can sack me, right, and replace me with myself for free. And on that cheery note, Will, thank you very much and good night. No, Will, cheers, mate. I enjoyed that. Will Guy there, OK. Technology journalist. Right, I'm going to lob it over to some of your views now. GBviews at gbnews.uk. Loads of them have been flooding in. Busy show, this, people, busy show. If you're just joining us, give you a quick whiz through. Right at the start, we were in Rwanda. That's right, because Boris Johnson is there, Prince Charles is there. So Boris Johnson, I think, recovering a little bit, really, from 2 by-election losses yesterday. And that will obviously have been a blow to him, one to Labour, one to the Lib Dems, as I'm sure you're all aware. But he was also, of course, talking about the Rwanda stuff, the Rwanda migrant deal. Prince Charles then took to the stage and said, look, basically, we're sorry for our historic wrongs, and appeared to maybe give the green light for people to leave the Commonwealth. Then we had a story, of course, about the fact that police are struggling to recruit. It's been a busy show, so we'll get some of your views. Right, Joe's on. Boris getting the big calls right. What a joke. This is from Joe. OK, so this was something we talked about before. We were saying, look, did Boris Johnson, OK, he's a flawed chap, aren't we all? But has he got the big calls right? That was the thing when he faced that confidence vote. That was the line coming out of Downing Street. Boris has got the big calls right. Joe says that's a joke. He says, too late to lockdown. Gosh, waste of billions of pounds on duff PPE, contracts given to friends of the government, moving COVID-positive patients from... This is true, to be fair. Moving COVID-positive patients from hospital into care homes. That was outrageous. What about Northern Ireland, he says? Well, what about Northern Ireland, Joe? But there we go. Janice is on, good stuff. These by-elections were the result of 2 sleazy MPs resigning. So why is Boris Johnson's fault? Janice says, how was he to know that these 2 constituencies elected would have 2 sleazy MPs? So a range of views, basically. And that's what we love about GB News, isn't it? GB Views at gbnews.uk. 2 completely polar opposite opinions, both given the same prominence. But now, let's take you through some of the headlines of the day that you might have missed. And we're off to Ukraine. A Ukrainian goat appears to have joined the resistance after injuring a group of Russian soldiers with grenades. Yep, there we go. So the goat triggered tripwire set up by the troops and set off a series of grenades, including apparently one that injured Kremlin soldiers with their own booby traps. I mean, to be fair, that's great. That's an absolutely brilliant story. Russians taken out by goats. There we are, OK. More digging is needed to see whether the bones of fallen Waterloo soldiers have been accidentally sold as fertiliser, according to a new study. So the remains of fallen Waterloo soldiers have rarely been found, frankly, after the bloody battle of 1815, with Professor Tony Pollard saying that it's likely, but not confirmed, that they were ground down into bone meal shortly after. Goodness me, it's gruesome stuff, isn't it? He's found 3 articles from the 1820s onwards that have referenced the importation of human bones from European battlefields for the purpose of producing fertiliser. Good gosh. And he believes that this is likely what happened to the Duke of Wellington's comrades. Oh, it's a thankless task, isn't it? Living back then looks like a dirty business for a start. Then, you're on the back of a horse and you're fighting the French, and before you know it, when you do die, your bones are used as fertiliser. I mean, there's no justice, is there? Anyway, say what you may about the UK civil servants, and we do say what we may about the UK civil servants, but listen to this story about one from Japan. So, an employee was tasked to help the city of Amagasaki, why not, I've had a go at it, roll out its COVID relief funds. And he went out drinking on Tuesday and got so drunk that he lost a USB flash drive that contained the personal information of all of the city's 460,000 residents. That's a bad night out, isn't it? That's a bad night out. What was the city's response in a statement? They said, we will work to regain our residents' trust by heightening awareness of the importance of protecting personal information. Do you remember that time? We've had a few bits like that over here, haven't we? I'm sure someone left a bit of, like, MI5 info on a train once, didn't they? I'm sure there was a story that happened where someone did a bit like this. They left a USB on a bus, I think, at one point, and I'm sure it had, like, our defence... It had like weapon system codes on it or something. I'm sure people will get in the inbox now and remind me exactly what that story is. But anyway, protecting it from their own contracted employees is what's going to have to happen now. Basically, the Japanese government have said sorry, right? We're very, very sorry about the fact that he went out, got leathered and lost your details, which, hey, we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But obviously now, we often see in films, don't we, and TV programmes, the rags to riches story, OK? But this rarely happens in real life. But Alfie Best, who's been called Britain's richest gypsy, is set to become a billionaire. Alfie was born in a caravan on the roadside in a snowstorm near Leicester, but now he's set to be coining it in after launching and now running a successful residential home parks empire. Good for him, I say. Good for him. He's doing so well that he just splashed out £4 million in a helicopter designed by Aston Martin. I'm starting to go off this guy, but I think it's just the jealousy. Now, as he prepares to become the world's first gypsy billionaire, and I'm pleased to say that Alfie Best joins me now. Look, can I just say, congratulations, mate. Well done. I mean, this is fantastic.
Thank you.
But so, can I have a tenner? No, but seriously, I mean, how is it? How is life being the first, going to be the first gypsy billionaire? Can I call? Is it right to call? Do I have to call you a traveller? Sorry, I don't know, mate. I'm just reading this out. Is that have I offended you there?
No, not at all.
Okay, sweet.
Gypsy, traveller, it's all the same.
All right, good stuff. So, how does it feel to be? You're about to be a billionaire.
Listen, I've got an exceptional life.
Oh no! Oh no! We've lost him. We've lost him. Okay, we'll get him back. We'll get him back. I'm sure we will. But is he good to go? No, we're not yet. Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, look, that was, of course, Alfie Best. We'll be going back to Alfie Best. Certainly his Wi-Fi's not the best, that's for sure. But yeah, so obviously this is a rags to riches story, in a way. Like I've said, Alfie was born basically in a caravan in Leicester, and now he is set to become the world's first gypsy or traveller billionaire. He's even just sunk £4 million on a helicopter designed by Aston Martin. We can see pictures of you listening on radio there. It shows, really, I think we can all agree, relatively humble beginnings. There's a caravan there, there's a van, and that's basically where he started his life. And I say good for him. You know what? This should be something that people... I don't think we do this well enough in this country, OK? I think there's a lot of jealousy going about. I know I was, joking there about Alfie's helicopter, and I am deeply jealous of that. But I think you look at the people like in America, where they want to have a Porsche, right? And they want you to have a Porsche, and they want everyone on the street to have a Porsche. Here in this country, I think we want to be the only one with a Porsche, don't we? We want to be the only people who are doing wealthy and doing well for themselves. And there's a lot of jealousy in this country, I think. I don't like that. I like, go and have a go. Like Alfie, go and have a go. And I think that's fantastic. We're going to go to some of your views now while we hopefully try to get Alfie back. GBViews at GBnews.uk. Alison in Cumbria, that used to be my neck of the woods. Alison, we're off to a good start. I would like to see Tobias Ellwood become our Prime Minister. He always speaks sense and appears to have the integrity that others like. Interesting that. I've interviewed, as you will have seen, no doubt, Alison, that Tobias is on this programme a lot. And I must say, I've always found him quite a nice guy. He's gone a bit squiffy recently on things like the EU, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Hi, Patrick. This is Louise now. This is Louise. Ian Duncan Smith is PM. Oh, OK. You know what? Whenever we did a poll on this about 10 months ago, Ian Duncan Smith always wins. Whenever I say to you guys, who do you want to be the next PM? Honestly, seriously, it's always Ian Duncan Smith. Anyway, there we go. Ian Duncan Smith is PM. We need someone with experience and knowledge, someone who's calm, but also able to communicate on the world stage and at home. We need knowledge and experience back in the front bench. Love the show. That's from Louise. Thank you very much, Louise. I think David Davies would be a good Prime Minister. He's another popular one as well. He's on this channel quite a lot. Nigel interviews him fairly regularly. Get back to Tory values and get this country back on its feet. That's from Stephen. Yeah, and I think that's an issue, Stephen, isn't it? Because at the moment, look, this is where I'm at with it. I don't know what I'd be voting for if I was voting for Keir Starmer. I don't think the guy's an inherently bad guy. I've got nothing against him personally. I just don't know what his policies are. Right? I don't think any of us do really, because he hasn't really bothered to tell us. But if you vote Tory at the minute as well, are you voting Conservative? Because there's not a lot of very Conservative things happening, is there, at the moment? How do you feel about that? Get in touch. No name on this one. I think it might be Bob. He says that in answer to your question about if... Look, I don't think Boris is going anywhere. If he does, right, who do you replace him with? And Ben Wallace is the answer for, I think, Bob. Penny Mordaunt's reared her head again. I'll tell you what a cracking head of hair she's got, by the way. But there we go. Look, loads of you have been getting in touch on this. Thank you very, very much. Fantastic to hear from you. But I just want to give you a little reminder that every Wednesday, we hand our show over to you. It's your show, OK? It's full of ideas and the things that you want us to talk about. We are the People's Channel, OK? And we like to reflect that, hold a mirror up to the population every single Wednesday. So we want to know what you think are the most important stories. We'll basically do anything. Get in touch with us, of course, gbviews at gbnews.uk, or indeed that email on the screen right now, to the point at gbnews.uk. We're across both inboxes, people. We can multitask here. But please tell us the subjects that you need covering, the questions that need answering, and as well, who we should be talking to, OK? We've had lots of emails, and keep them coming. I absolutely love the Wednesday shows because basically it's you, OK? And you can just tell us what you want covering, and we will absolutely do it. And I tell you what, you don't get that on the BBC, do you? Email us your stories to the point at gbnews.uk. Cheeky little plug, because I'm going to be back later on, right? Friday Night Feast this evening, 7 till 9 p.m. Can I just say, all right, and I know I would say this because it's my show, but this is the best one yet, OK? You will not believe what I've been up to this week. And some of it, frankly, hurts a lot. So I'll see you at 7, all right? Take it easy, everyone. See you later.
Hello, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update. Again, today the weather's going to be fairly mixed. Some warm sunshine, but also some heavy downpours, and that mixture of sunshine and showers will continue through the weekend. We are, though, going to see things turning cooler and fresher through the weekend as this cold front moves in. But it's only slowly approaching at the moment. It'll bring some wet weather later to parts of the southwest, Wales and Northern Ireland. Ahead of it, we've still got the relatively warm and humid air, and the Met Office have issued